Hi, my name is Mao. I'm a freelance illustrator with a passion for history and art. I was always drawn to it. For me, they were both always strongly connected, intertwining with each other in various ways. History educates and inspires, while art reflects and expresses. Focusing on Chinese history, it's important for me to stay as original as possible, which I already failed to do. But now I want to attempt it again. I want to expand my territory, trying to visualize a historical narrative in my illustrations. Today I want to share my illustration progress of my original character Feiyu, my thoughts on Chinese clothing history, theme symbolism, and much more. Feiyu together with Rongyu are both important creations for me. They hold a special place in my creative journey. But today I want to focus on Feiyu, delving into his past to uncover his beginning. So first, a bit of background on this guy. Qinlong Feiyu was born as the second son, his mother being the emperor's favorite consort, the emperor himself being the Azure Dragon King. He grew up as one of the 8 princes. Looking at his rank, he had no chance to ascend the throne. From a young age, it was clear that the highest likelihood of succession was reserved for his younger brother, the first son of the empress. Feiyu was long recognized as a member of the royal family. He had a lower rank compared to his other siblings, but still a higher position compared to other individuals. Only after his mother passed away, he became devastated and alone. The emperor turning cold and distant, harboring resentment towards Feiyu, viewing him as a reminder of his past consort. Feiyu's world turned black, his brothers treated him with disdain. Being subjected several times, he had to bend, losing his dignity. Now, without further ado, let's dive into some artistic context. Looking through different kind of books, paintings, or even the internet, I noticed one thing. There are few to none depictions of Chinese princes. I knew since then it would become a big problem to design, particularly in the context of historical garments such as hanfu. It became clear to me that this lack of representation posed a significant challenge, which I had to overcome. I started to collect visual references from everywhere, starting from different colors, skirts, and embroidery. But which type of hanfu was worn during a specific dynasty? The hanfu history is long. It already existed before the pre-Qin period existed. Traditional garments have developed over time, reflecting changes in fashion, social norms, and influences. Breaking down the key principles, a hanfu should consist of first, a top, and second, a bottom. Starting with the Han Dynasty, male hanfu had white sleeves, cross colors, and airy skirts. Moving on to the Wei and Jin dynasties, male hanfu became less airy, means fewer layers of fabric and narrower sleeves. The lower and upper body was divided by a belt, and embroidery woven patterns became more significant. The Tang dynasty added new unique elements to man clothing. Headwear became more popular. Long sleeves and many loose layered robes placed comfort over aesthetic. Yet high-waist styles with a belt or sash added charisma to the simple look. During the Song dynasty, menswear became restrained again. The clothing was less voluminous, the sleeves narrowed again, and the collars were often crossed over the chest. Scholar hats became more norm. Coming to my favorite dynasty, the Ming dynasty, it was long, loose outer garments that was worn with high round or crossed collars. Buzi patterns served as a symbol of identity and rank. The royal family had their own patterns, mostly dragons. You can easily recognize imperial dragons by their 5 claws. For the final design, I decided to go with Ming Dynasty inspired hanfu. The Ming Dynasty captivates me through its elegance, intricate embroidery, and colors. Having watched the Chinese drama Royal Feast with many various accurate depictions of Ming clothing, I decided to go with the Yunling Pao, the robe with round color. So how did I eventually dress him up? Without explaining the different complex layers of clothing, I will explain what you see. Beginning with the outerwear, you can see the Yunling Pao and the round color Yunling. Yunling Pao was inspired by Zhu Zhenzi's blue Yunling Pao and the restored hanfu of the 10th son and prince in Ming Dynasty, which father was the Emperor Hongwu. For the royal family pattern, I decided to replicate the Li dragon or standing dragon of Zhu Tan's Yunling Pao, often used as a motif in Ming Dynasty. Moving on to the accessories, I tried to find the exact Chinese terms for the accessories I was looking for, but just couldn't find them. Gladly, I still managed to navigate the designs with a few scraps I have found. To start with the belt, I tried to research a typical belt. I researched and found out that a typical belt for high officials or royalty was a leather belt with jade. During Ming Dynasty, the jade was a precious material to show one's status and nobility. So without further delay, I just put it on. Feiyu. Additionally, to the belt I included the Yao Pei, which is a general term for waistwear ornaments. Yao Pei is often seen in C-dramas and has many forms and types, but going with the jade theme of the belt, I choose the Yu Pei. Yu Pei is specifically a jade pendant that was often worn during Ming Dynasty. It was not only beautiful, but also helped to hold down the skirt. When I looked for design, everything that came to mind were dragons again. Particularly, this jade ornament reminded me of Feiyu, since he hasn't cultivated to a dragon yet. The Yu Pei ornament is a snake-like dragon carved into a spiral. It represents growth and evolution, often associated with a journey of development and progression of life. Going to the top, you can see that I added a top knot on his head. I debated long which hairstyle would fit the occasion. The most accurate, according to various sources, would simply be a top knot, covered with fabric or hairpin. But what I chose instead was a hairstyle often seen in Chinese period dramas, long loose hair and a top knot. However, it makes sense if you consider that Feiyu is currently a not yet adult man. Coming back to fabric or a hairpin, I choose the classic hairpin and a complex metal piece. The hairpin is a jade one carved into a dragon, of course. The metal piece has a color of eternity, Wan Shi Sheng Se, Chinese tree peony engraved on it. This is Feiyu's final design. I must say I'm very satisfied with it. Now let's move on to the background of this painting. For the background, I wanted to draw Feiyu's hometown. Considering that he himself is an Azure dragon, means his hometown is located in the east, according to Chinese folklore. Maybe you've heard of the 4 symbols. The 4 symbols are Chinese constellations, which are viewed as guardians of the 4 cardinal directions. They are the Azure dragon of east, the vermilion bird of south, the white tiger of the west, and the black tortoise of the north. Each of these celestial beings represent a cardinal direction, but also additionally represent a season and element. The Azure dragon is closely connected to the element wood. It represents growth, vitality, and new beginnings, which is coherent with the season of spring. While the Azure dragon is primarily a celestial being, it's not typically associated with a specific physical location. Instead, its realm is considered to be in the heavens or in the celestial realm. When I drew the realm of Azure dragon, I wanted to depict it as an ancient Chinese landscape painting. The first painter I had in mind to take inspiration from was Qu Ying. Qu Ying is a famous Chinese painter who was born during Ming Dynasty. His landscape paintings are simply breathtaking. The vibrant colors, his precise brushwork captivates me, every time. The East realm has no clear reference or imagery. The things I had in mind were the flourishing nature, the vibrant spring colors, crystal clear rivers, since azure dragons are also associated with water and rain, as it's considered to be a symbol of prosperity. As for the architecture, I took inspiration from the Chinese Imperial Palace in China and other. For the rest of the background, I followed this painting as reference. Next, I'll be breaking down important elements with the finished line art. As I previously said, Feiyu has experienced a difficult past, his traumatic experiences altering his perception of the place he once called home. Drawing this painting, I often ask myself, how old is Feiyu in this painting? Is it before or after he was banished from his clan? Trying to answer these questions, I met difficulties. His attire indicates the past, while his expression conveys self-assured bravery with a paradoxical blend of cold and distant clouded eyes, pointing out that his present life in the mortal realm has shaped him. Maybe it even highlights Feiyu's growth. I wasn't sure what I wanted to achieve. I will say the painting serves as a symbol to simply portray the experiences, circumstances that have shaped Feiyu's life and personality. It helps me and you, of course, to understand and deepen the understanding of his characteristics, motivations, fears and desires. You might have already wondered about specific symbolism hidden in the painting. I think I don't have to say anything more about the dragon pendant and hairpin, since I covered the ideation behind it in the previous chapter. I only left out the meaning behind the metal piece that has a color of eternity, Chinese tree peony engraved on it. As you may know, each of my characters is assigned a specific flower. Rongyu the lotus, Mihuan the plum, so of course I had to find one for Feiyu too. What immediately came to mind was the peony, also known as the queen of flowers in China. It even was the national flower of China back in Tang Dynasty. But that wasn't enough. I wanted to find a Chinese peony which would be associated only with him, egoistically said. After scrolling through tons of different peonies, I found the perfect one. Color of eternity, 1 Shi Sheng Se Chinese tree peony. This type of peony seems to exist but isn't well known, especially if you search with the English name. So the reason I chose this particular flower was due to its name, color of eternity, or other translations such as everlasting splendor or endless prosperity and flourishing age. This peony has stunning, large and multi-layered blossoms that come in various shades of pink, red and white. For Feiyu's flower, I choose a pinkish red. Coming to the flower meaning, the peony is mostly associated with prosperity, honor and elegance. The metal piece was the smallest thing I have hidden, so let's come to the bigger ones. The dragon flying in the paper scrolls, for instance. While the paper scrolls hanging from above seemed to be a rather stylistic aesthetic choice, the mysterious dragon, on the other hand, seems to add new layers of visual communication. Looking for a reference, I already knew that the dragon is going to be an azure dragon. To be more precise, a navy blue one, since it's basically Feiyu's true form, if he would succeed transforming into one, which is currently in the present, to unknown reasons, not possible for him. I wanted to remind the spectator with what Feiyu struggles the most right now, or in other words, his biggest insecurity and disgrace. A simple contradiction to visualize his past and present vulnerability and the beginning of new growth and awakening. For the final step, the only thing left to explain now are the mysterious, questionable lanterns. Why lanterns, you may ask, being a rather questionable thing to add in one's painting? But it has a simple reason. It's the meaning again, which establishes a significant key for visual narration. Usually, Chinese lanterns are often associated with luck, celebration, and prosperity. But they also can have a somber, sad meaning, which I applied on this painting. Practically, the lantern Feiyu's holding lights the way. In a more metaphorical sense, it symbolizes the search for meaning, purpose in life. As for the lanterns in the background, which are inspired by the astonishing Chinese lanterns from Dongyang, Jinhua, Zhejiang province, I wanted them to portray the idea of letting go of painful and sorrowful memories in order to move on. There's somehow a silent prayer for him to have a good life. Having everything explained, let's move on to the final step, coloring. Unlike usually, I had no clear planned out color scheme. I started to create reference boards to get a better idea for what I wanted to go for. When I started to color Feiyu's Yinling Pao, I already knew it was going to be navy blue, which followed a clear idea. Namely, it was the color given by his father, the emperor. It symbolizes his rank in the royal hierarchy. The overall atmosphere should convey the desired mood of nostalgia, grief, and new beginnings. Keeping that in mind, I started to lay down the colors. My main struggles throughout the coloring process were to combine the dark colors with the vibrant blue and green colors that I used to paint the background landscape with. Only with many overlays and additional mood layers was I able to harmonize the painting. And please, you won't believe me how much glitter and sparkles, light particles save me every time. Just look at the before and after. It's insane how much these small details help to fulfill a painting, but also establish the visual flow. Combining all together, I was able to set the atmosphere I wanted. For the last step, I had to darken some areas to achieve better value. Setting the focal point in the middle of the painting where Feiyu and where his hometown lies made it easier to decide what to make darker. Also considering the moon, which shines from above. All that helped to create a sense of three-dimensionality on a two-dimensional surface, which finally contributed to a better guiding of the viewer's eyes. And this is the final painting. Thank you for sticking with me and accompanying me on this journey until the end. This project was a big challenge but also meant a lot. As we wrap up this final chapter, I hope this could give insight into my work and I hope it helped you to feel inspired. Thank you for your curiosity. Until our paths cross again.